All right, Ed Carbajal from MyMMAnews speaking with Invicta FC Atomweight champion once again, Jillian DeCoursey. Jillian, thank you for making time to talk to me. I really do appreciate it. I know we're only a few weeks out from your fight. It feels like it's right around the corner. How are you doing thus far?
So far so good. It's getting to that point in camp where you're like, all right, like just just keep trugging along. But I try to set everything up like early on in camp. So everything's already scheduled, everything's laid out. So then when it gets to the points where you're just like, all right, I just gotta kind of go, it's like easy just to kind of keep that routine and be like, all right, well, everything's already set. So I just have to do them.
Yeah, and I know you've been pretty good about that, obviously, lately with becoming champion, and now you got now you got the defense, your first defense set up. So my first question for you, and I know you've been kind of addressing it already, but you always hear the phrase "heavy lies the crown," and here you are at the top. You've hit a point you've been working so hard in your career. Now the bullseye. The funny thing about it is now the bullseye is on you, and everybody seems to be coming for you. I mean, we've seen stuff from folks from Ryzen wanting to fight you and stuff like that. So, how have you been dealing with all that since you become champion?
I kind of just like deal with it in the moment and then try and put it like out of my head, and not really like think about it or focus on it too much. Because I feel like that's when you get like distracted when you get sucked into like, you know, thinking about all of that. And then that's where you can't focus and you can't perform at your best. So for me, it's like, all right, obviously you have to deal with it. You have to address it when it comes up. But then as soon as it's done, I try to be like separate it, being like, okay, boom, that's done, that's dealt with, and now like focus out that like task at hand.
And you being, I mean, you've been wanting to be get to where you are so long. Being the champion now, like how has it been like making? Obviously, you have the fight coming up against Rayan dos Santos. It's still Rayan, right?
Yeah, 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 still same
Yeah.
opponent. Yeah.
So
As far as
so
I know, like
yeah.
unless something happened that I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because I know it's been as a challenger in the past. Like it's been hard road travel to get the shots, and now as a champion, now you're sitting there waiting for opponents to challenge you. Um, how has it been like with this fight getting made? I know Del Boni wanted a rematch. I know when you were on the podcast that I do with Matt, we kind of talked about that.
Right.
But it's like like is it different for you to wait for the people to come at you?
I mean, I guess it's a kind of like a nice change.
Hmm.
Instead of having to be the one to like hunt down and being like, be vocal, 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 like trying to get fights, trying to get matches, trying to get like what I feel like I deserve.
Hmm.
So now it was kind of like, oh wait, like I just get to sit back and like everything unfolds for me, and I don't have like I already put the work in, so I just get to like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, this date works for me, let's do it. So it's been really nice and refreshing in that way.
I mean, that's cool, and I'm happy that it's refreshing. It's nice for you to finally feel that side of it after being the one, kind of plant stomping your foot and making the case
Right.
for yourself.
Having little
This whole
tantrums.
yeah, exactly. But what I found interesting is that you recently did the Rise Invitational, the grappling match, and I was like, I remember in all the times we've talked, I was like, that was something you always did to keep your blade sharp when you weren't getting the fights that you
Right.
want. And here you are as champion, and you're still doing that. Is it almost like reverse preparation now? Like, okay, let me continue to face these specialists because you know people will think that's something that they have over me, or is it just? I mean, because it was like a couple of weeks ago you did the Rise thing.
Yeah, it was what, April 1st? Yeah, so yeah, literally just like 2 weeks ago. So that kind of just like happened. Like they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to compete. And like it kind of was happening at like the same time that I was gonna find out when I was fighting.
Hmm.
So, I like just confirmed with Invicta to make sure like it wasn't gonna be in April. And when they were like, no, no, it's definitely May, I was like, all right, cool. Are you guys cool with me doing this? Like, I'm just gonna jump in and do it then. And, like, I kinda went back and forth a little bit, like, leading up to it. I'm like, "Oh, is this smart to do this? Is this stupid?" So we kinda just made a deal with, like between, like, my coaches and I were like, "Alright, like, if I was in, like, in something that was just, like, chancy or, like, a sub where it was like, alright, normally I might fight out of it, If it was something that like had a high potential for like injury, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it was just gonna be like just tap early. Um, and it was a match against I had went against that girl previously like a few years back. So it was kind of like, all right, like I kind of know you're gonna like what you're gonna try and do, and like my goal is just like shut it down and kind of do like a dress rehearsal for like the
Mm-hmm.
fight. And like for me, like going into grappling matches sometimes are like more anxiety provoking because I guess it's more unfamiliar at this point because I don't do them as frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, it's a good opportunity just to kind of one test, see where I'm at against straight grapplers. And then, test, like just put that anxiety out there and being like, all right, like, how are we dealing with this? How are we responding? Like, what's our, what do we have to make sure we tweak, like, mindset wise, for the fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned the talking to your coaches and your team about it being a smart move because when I saw you announce that in my own mind, I was like, "Isn't she fighting? Isn't she supposed to-" like that was the first thing that happened to me? So it's nice to see at least that whole process went through your own mind and with your team. Do you kind of like? Is it like a vote? Like how does that? How do you make the choice? It's like a vote process with you and your team.
No, I was just kind of like, I had done that like, I actually did Rise about the same amount of time, like, the last time I did from a couple years back, it was, like, the same thing, like, I had a fight a month later, and, like, my one coach that was gonna come with me, he was like, "Yeah," so he was like, "If it's on the chance of you're tapping, right?" I was like, "Yeah, no, 100%." So it was kinda like it was just, like, unwritten rule this time when we talked about it, like, "All right, hey, if it's something where you don't feel like, you feel like there's a chance, tap," right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, because for me right now at this point in my career, the fights are what's more important, right? Especially
Mm-hmm.
a title fight, defending your belt. Like that's not something that you're gonna throw away because you got tapped in a grappling match.
Yeah. I mean, it's this event is it's kind of like so like again, I do the podcast with Matt and he's talked to you too.
Hmm.
And he and I have been talking about he's actually going to be there for you for your fight.
Oh, awesome.
Um um but there's like your event, that event, Invicta FC 53, it's almost like the first of many combat sports events in the area of where
Yeah.
you of where you're going to be competing. I mean, and your Invicta FC 53 is it's like the catalyst. It's like the start everything off, and it's on a Wednesday.
Yep.
So, does that add to? Is there any pressure added like to everything else that you're carrying around?
No, not really. I haven't really thought about that. It's just annoying because like hotels and everything is more expensive than it would be because there's so many damn events going on that week.
Mm.
So it's like, all right, thanks guys. But no, other than that, like I haven't really thought about that. Like we're gonna probably be in town, so we're trying to maybe like go to a couple events afterwards or something. But we haven't really like I don't really settle or think about things after until like
Mm.
the fight is over. Then it's like, all right, what are we gonna do? What's happening? What's going on? Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I mean that kind of falls in line with what you told me about from what you read about the book with the from the book that you read and
Yep.
stuff. So it makes a lot of sense to me. The event that's happening that night, I found it odd. I mean, you can chime in on this if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. But I found it odd that they put Del Boni on the same card, and I know she was calling for a rematch like right
Yeah.
away. And I know we talked about, in my opinion. I mean, when you finish someone, I feel like the rematch you kind of have to, you don't get that right away. You have to work your way back. I
100%.
I don't agree with like immediate rematches, especially if the person that lost is finished. Um,
Right.
but like, I mean, was there any shock on your part that like, why are they putting her on the same card as me? Or
No, like I guess like well more of the shock was like that she's like fighting at 15 on on the
mm,
next one. And I was like, wait, I was like, you were not big for 105. Like, I was significantly taller. So I thought that part was weird. I was like, all
mm,
right, I mean, but to each his own, right? Um, I mean personally I wasn't a fan of their the the poster that they put out. Because I'm like, one, I'm like, why? Like, you're like, I thought she was going to be co-main event based on that poster they put out. You're
mm,
not co-main event. So, like, why do you have all these, like, kind of like people on the poster? Like, why is it, you should have that co-main event up there? I feel like that's unfair. And, like, to them, I
mm,
don't know if they're going to change the actual fight poster or not. And they just need, those were fights that were booked. So they were like, oh, okay, here, let's get something out there.
mm-hmm.
But if I was a co-main event, I'd be a little salty about that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I that's true too. But your opponent, the opponent ahead of you, like, I mean, looking at her record. I mean, is there any concern about the amount of fights she has versus yours? I know your experience overall, in my opinion, balances out versus what's on paper and MMA records. But like as far as you and your team are concerned, when you're looking ahead to the fight you have coming up, how do you match? How do you see yourself matching up against Dos Santos?
Yep, I mean, so as far as, like, record-wise, like, yeah, she has more fights than I do, technically professional fights, but we don't know how many amateur fights she has, if she really had any, because a lot of times outside of, like, the US, they don't really their amateur careers are way shorter.
Hmm.
So, like, if you take into account my all the amateur fights I had where, fight-wise, we're probably in a similar area,
Hmm.
and, her compared to when I fought Jessica, their records were pretty similar, about same amount of fights. So I don't really look into that too much because you could have, you could have 50 fights and you know, you're fighting all like scrubs. All right, well, congratulations. You're like, 42-8, but like fought people that came off their couch. So
Mm.
like it doesn't really hold anything. That's just like that's ego right there.
Mm.
Um, so I don't really look into that. I look into more like the most recent fights. So when we watch her fights and stuff where we didn't go back all the way back. Like, no, we watched the last couple, the ones that are the most relevant,
Yeah.
see improvements that you made there. Um, but I really don't think into it too much because I've been like, the last two fights, like major underdogs and especially the last fight with Jessica, she had way more fights than I did, way
Mm.
more pro fights. Um, and it didn't, at the end of the day, it didn't make a difference.
Yeah. That's for sure. Well, I mean, one last question for me is, looking ahead to the future, and I don't like to look too far ahead, but the funny thing I find is because we had talked about like the promotions that have the division you fight in,
Hmm.
division you want to fight in, um, and it's so we talked about all the events in your area. One championship is going to be the same within like the same week of
Yep.
of your fight. I'm wondering if like if there's going to be any sort of, are they going to invite you to come watch their event, or if
I
anything,
hope
because
so,
they
because those
definitely
tickets
have
are
an
crazy
Atomweight.
expensive. Yeah, and I want to, I want to go to I want to. That's one of the events that we actually really want to go to. But
Mm,
we haven't looked at like ticket wise right now is like kind of a little crazy. So that would be something like either I can get a nice little sweet hookup there, or
yeah.
we work some champ magic or something.
Yeah, because it definitely, I feel like it just seems like now this is the time for the sport to start doing stuff like that, especially
Right,
with if they're going to be literally days apart. It'd be nice to entertain and test the waters to see how fight fans might like to see more. Because it seems like Bellator is the only one doing
right.
cross promotion. But yeah. So anyway, is there, if there's anybody that you want to shout out and give thanks to? I mean, I know you got a lot of sponsors and stuff. I mean, the floor is yours. I know the event's soon, but I just wanted to give you some time to kind of like get that out of the way. And it's a pretty big deal. I feel like this one's a pretty big deal because of the location.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Not fighting in the middle of nowhere this time,
Yeah.
like, kinda
Yeah.
nice. I'm like, "Oh, wait, we don't have to fly somewhere to hang out afterwards, we can actually just stay where the event is, that's nice." And I've never been to Denver before, so I'm kinda excited about that.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, again, I mean, I'm in New Jersey, so I wanted Atlantic City would have been nice too. But this is nice. This is nice
I
too.
mean, yeah, supposedly they're still trying to come to the East Coast, so we'll see what happens, that would definitely be nice.
Well, you pick up that W. That's, I hope that lights fires under somebody
Yes.
to, like, we got to make this happen.
Oh, man, I'm like, "Yeah, like, you put me and you put Fatima Klein on the card on the East
Uh,
Coast, and, like,
yeah.
that's it, we're selling just her and I ourselves could sell out the place."
Well, Jillian, thank you so much for making time to talk. If you want to shout out your sponsors, by all means.
Oh, yeah, so, thank you. I have, like, a long list of sponsors, um, but, some of my most, like, loyal ones have been with me from the beginning, Seek Chick, Receptor Naturals, a CBD company, um, we got I always mess this up, Parts Wholesale Supplements, I got oh my god, I suck at this. I'm like, whenever I get put on the spot, I'm like, "Ah, ah, ah." But guys, I'll shout you guys
Yeah,
out on social media. I'll be on my banner, on my fight outfit. So, I
yeah,
appreciate, everything. My whole team at Long Island MMA and Ring Sport Muay Thai, my manager, Jason Adams. Those are the big wigs.
yeah, for sure. Anyway, well, Jillian, thank you so much for making time to talk. I know it was like on a crazy, the way we hooked it up was crazy, but you always make time for me, and I really do appreciate it. And I'll be cheering for you. Matt will be there. I'm sorry I couldn't be there,
That's all
but
right.
Matt will be
You're
there.
there in
So
spirit.
yeah, I'll definitely be watching.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.